Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's episode of the Hoops Link podcast. My name is Daniel Carlin. With me, a real special guest, Coach Tony Newnan from UCLA women's basketball, coming off the Assistant Coach of the Year award, and then has just been promoted to Associate Head Coach for UCLA women's basketball, our first Power Conference coach on the podcast. So, Coach, we're so fortunate that you're joining us today and appreciate you taking the time.
It's a pleasure to be here. Love it, Daniel. Doing good work.
Thank you. So obviously we just talked about that Assistant Coach of the Year award. Now the promotion. A couple of weeks ago, we had a former colleague of yours, Coach Kirsten Moore, who was talking about you and said, "Hey, I've got Coach coming on in a couple of weeks. What question should I ask him?" And she said, you should really ask him about his coaching philosophy, and that just he has this positivity about him that just no matter what's going on, like he's always managed to find, I guess the glass half full. She said that she was kind of talking to you about some of the things that were happening with the portal, and you had all these success, and now you've got players that move and you have to go and fill back up and all these kind of things. And just that every time she talks to you, you have such a positive take, the ability to really stay level-headed regardless of whatever the stressful situation might be in game or just dealing with different program matters. My wife, who it's also important for her and for the listeners, that had the fortune of being coached by you as well, and so she put her stamp on that too, and she's all the time, I love Coach Tone. I love Coach Tone. Yeah, that's true. That's true. So I was wondering if you just talk to our guests a little bit, just one about maybe how you feel receiving that honor of being the Assistant Coach of the Year, maybe some of the things that help kind of get you to that spot. And then, what do you believe makes you that kind of coach where you have the ability to look at anything in a positive situation or to stay level-headed, regardless of the many factors that obviously you're going through at a high-level program like UCLA.
Well, the Assistant Coach of the Year award was a big shock. Thankful that we had a very good team that put me on some type of profile. But I mean, it literally thought it was a joke at first. I get this text from the WBCA president saying, "Hey, we need to talk." And I'm like, yeah, I'm texting with our head coach, Corey, and I'm like, "Is this a spam? Like, it looks like spam, And she's like, "Yeah, I think it is." And then it kept happening. And she's like, "No, you need to pick it up. You need to talk to this lady." So, but to be honored with such an award by, voted on by your peers. So that's probably what makes it the most special, is that I have the trust and value from my peers doing this. I love what I'm doing. I've done it for a long, long time. Even when I tried to leave, I still couldn't leave, and I got the pleasure of coaching Alicia, your wife. So yeah, God's taken care of me in many great ways. So yeah, but the most excited person about it was my father. He went to like every game in the postseason and would sit in the stands and tell everybody that he's the dad of the Assistant Coach of the Year. And, so he really enjoyed it. And
that's great.
He loves it. As far as like staying level-headed or positive, I would say, I've even grown more in that. Maybe not the positive part, but I do try to stay calm in the storm, try to stay focused on, what's happening. I mean, obviously when I was a lot younger, I used to be a little more of a hothead, but I've matured in my process and been able to kind of put the hothead away, especially in stressful moments. We got plenty of people getting emotional around me. So I try to stay as steady as I can and stay real, kind of try to understand what's really happening. Why is it happening? What's going on? I'm a fix it kind of guy. So trying to, process that. I still am positive, but I would say optimistic instead of positive, maybe realistic with a big dash of optimism in there.
Yeah.
I think that's a lot easier to get than fake positivity. So I would say I lean in definitely the calm, steady one. Although if you turn the ball over, I'm extremely pissed. I just understand why I would even have a turnover in a game. But at the same time, I know the other team's trying too. So I got to stay realistic and optimistic that that'll be the last time it happens.
Yeah, that's good. When I think especially for, a program like UCLA, when you've got, multiple coaches across the board, all kind of doing their different roles, can you maybe talk about keeping that level headedness? And so you talked about turnovers a little bit, but maybe like specifically over the course of the game, like what are the little pieces that you're trying to pick up on as you're analyzing, as you're trying to give feedback to the head coach or some of the players? Does it change game to game? Is it based on the scout? Do you have kind of a general assignment that you're working on to make sure you get that feedback back to the coach during games? You can just talk us through what that looks like, during those real game moments.
Yeah, we've got a lot of great coaches that I work with, and we all have specific areas and responsibilities that we're a little more in charge of or have responsibility for. Specifically with the games, I kind of work the offense with our head coach. I'm kind of in charge of special situations, end games, those type of things. So really got to stay focused on that. And, end game, things change instantly. So what I'm thinking 10 seconds ago after that bad foul changes or whatever it may be. So staying really, composed in that and, taking accountability to prepare for those things, constantly think ahead. Obviously in practice, we run a lot of special situation areas. And today we even ran one that was defensive in practice, being up and are we going to foul, not foul, those kind of situations. But those are probably my biggest focuses during the game would just be offense and then ready for any type of end game or some kind of situation that comes up. But then we do have scouting responsibilities. So we have four of us coaches who divvy up scouting responsibilities. So if it's my scout that game, I'm a little bit more directly in the head coach's ear the entire game.
Yep.
Obviously, we talk as assistants on the bench throughout the game and share ideas and back and forth with each other. But whoever's in charge of the scout then is kind of like the direct relay from the assistant coaches to the head coach. And Coach Corey, she's wonderful. She trusts us. She gives us a lot of responsibility. So usually when we present her an idea, she knows that we've communicated about it. We've researched it. We're prepared for it. She kind of goes with it most of the time. And if she doesn't, then we are real optimistic that that's a great choice.
Yeah.
You got this, coach. Yeah, good call. So try to make her feel good about her decision at the same time.
Yeah, that's awesome. When I think about college basketball, and obviously, you've been at UCLA now well over a decade, and so I'm sure you've seen some changes come along. But it really feels like in the last 5 years or so, college basketball has changed drastically. Kind of from that COVID season, you have extra eligibility. All of a sudden, all these new NIL rules come into play, and so now how much money is available, players, that being a part of their recruiting process. Am I going to have access to that? What's my marketability like? What can the program do for me as far as sometimes maybe kind of push my brand forward so, I can get a sense in that. Money is kind of always a big part of college athletics. And so part of some of the alignment, which obviously now sees UCLA in the Big Ten, and not that the Pac-12 was a small or inferior conference by any means, but obviously now just the scale of the Big Ten, I mean, basically being a national league. When I think about women's basketball on top of that as a whole, it really seems like over the past 3-4 years has jumped drastically in popularity, and it's probably always been going. But it seems like after the last couple of national tournaments, kind of the Caitlin Clark runs, the LSU rivalries, more people have kind of followed college basketball into the WNBA. It seems like there's more kind of talking heads, whether it be on radio or TV shows that are paying attention to it. Can you maybe just discuss how you've seen it change, how you guys and at UCLA are managing just that, I guess, that rapid growth over the last couple of years, and what it feels like, coaching now as maybe opposed to 5 years ago?
Yeah. Wow. Changes monthly, it seems like.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think that's just at first, a lot of the people that were veteran coaches in the NCAA are probably questioning what direction we're going and why we're doing this. And this doesn't align with how we always used to do it. And I think now, I mean, things are just changing so much in every aspect, whether it's just, attendance, profile, recruiting, finances, all that stuff are really changing. You just got to kind of go with it, and find a voice. There's areas to kind of join committees and express your opinion and help participate in, making changes that, you feel are appropriate. So I just encourage people, that would come after me to be proactive in the thing that we love so much. We love impacting the lives of young people and helping them grow and achieve dreams, and being in a competitive environment is great, but we need people that are going to be on the front line of helping to make some decisions, and at least be able to give feedback to the people who are making decisions, and I think on a recruiting committee right now and trying to help, think about how does that affect when we do NIL, or when do we have our off days, or how does, overseas recruiting look like, or how can we streamline it to make it fair for everybody? So always making those talks and making those suggestions to people. But I mean, I think it's been good, the changes. I mean, how can they not be? The women deserve everything that's coming at them. I mean, obvious how some of the deliverables have, kind of skipped a couple steps maybe, or got outside the guide rails of what's happening might be a little unfortunate, but it is what we have right now, and I'm really excited for the exposure about how great our sport is, how great the women are, and the impact that they're making. I still think it can be college basketball and at the same time, impact the lives of a lot of people who are really excited, and motivate the young ladies that are coming to the games, and can we do it the right way? And I just think there's a lot of opportunity, outside the game with television, mini series and behind the scenes actions to show people that there's a lot of levels to the athlete that's out there. It's not just a competitor, but these are humans who care, feel, grow, laugh, cry, and compete in a really tough way. And I'm excited to be a part of it. And UCLA has been real fortunate to be at the forefront of a lot of what's going on right now.
Yeah, that's awesome. And a couple of follow-up questions to kind of the move to the Big Ten. Now, I mean, UCLA, you guys have had a bunch of success, multiple kind of Sweet 16, Elite Eights over the past few years. When it comes to making that move over to the Big Ten, and as far as you kind of getting notified, like as a coaching staff, can you talk about, I guess, that process of saying, hey, we're now moving from here to here, understanding what that looks like? Maybe talk about planning. I've heard more interviews on the men's side and Coach Cronin talking about, the scheduling and going back and forth and flying all over the country. So, obviously there are decisions in that are kind of money based on, obviously the bigger the teams, the bigger the deals, the more sponsorships we can bring in. And so maybe that's what some people at the top of those conferences are thinking about. But when you guys get that notification of, all right, we're going to the Big Ten, is there any change in how do we now approach the season? How do we get the team ready? What are some of the things that maybe you didn't know at the start, but now being in the league for a couple of years, you feel like you've had to change or adjust to give yourselves a better chance as you're moving through the season?
Yeah, the Big Ten move came quickly, shockingly. There was like a group email sent through our athletic department that said like, hey, you're going to be hearing something about moving to the Big Ten here shortly, and it's going to blow up, and it's true, and we'll make a formal announcement in like 40 minutes. That was the advance notice we got on it. It was super, 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 super triple secret. And I don't know how they kept such a massive thing quiet, but it literally happened, something like that. In prepping for it, we actually did have some foresight into like preparing for the travel. So the year before we moved into the Big Ten, we scheduled a lot of preseason games, towards the East Coast or in the Eastern time zone. So basically like the entire preseason, like every weekend we flew cross country and played a game and then came back and then flew across country and played a game and just started trying to get used to that type of travel. We had a young team, so it actually is going to be beneficial for the team in the future. Luckily, we actually did okay. I think we went undefeated on those trips. So built a lot of confidence and that we could do this. That's probably the biggest thing that we changed in preparation. Other than that, coming from the Pac-12, it was, probably at the time, the most dominant women's basketball conference at the time. So the style of play, shift to the play wasn't much of a change for us. A lot of new scouts. Everybody was new. So scouting got a little more intense, a little more time, like Oregon, I probably knew, at least they came to the Big Ten. Now I still know all their out of bounds plays, so I'm good, but all the other ones were real difficult. But that was probably the biggest change that, that we had in preparation of it. But it's been great. It's going to change again. It's going to be the big whatever. And I think that's where we're going. I don't know how, and we'll get there, but there is a business professional model to collegiate athletics now that, the ADs and football coaches are kind of behind everything, and basketball and women's basketball kind of get thrown right in there to be a part of it.
Yeah.
And hopefully we keep growing the administration and resources around the women's basketball to utilize this spike in, interest and levels and, TV arrangements. And, we did our schedule this year based upon, where we're going to be on TV, what kind of big financial package is it going to be that we can use to help with our players, as opposed to just like, hey, Bahamas sounds fun, let's go there, So there's a lot more that goes into scheduling now for sure.
Yeah. So that's when I think about some of the things you've just commented on, whether it be the travel back and forth from the East Coast every single week. UCLA obviously is known for really strong academics as well. So whether it's for the ladies on your team, traveling back and forth, staying on top of classes, you mentioned previously talking about some of the what's kind of TV, the behind the scenes stuff, like really getting to know the person and kind of being more than an athlete. I think part of the NIL realm is, as players, you have to hold yourself in a certain way if you want to be marketable, if you want to attract certain deals. That it's not that just any brand is just going to throw out money to anyone. You actually have to be able to kind of sell yourself or kind of hold yourself to a certain standard in a public eye to make sure that you can maybe benefit off, especially to a place like UCLA where some of that opportunity might be. Is there anything that you would kind of try to recommend to, like, the high school player that has Division I aspirations, and it's like, you should know this or be aware of this now before you get to campus, or whenever you've seen examples of younger girls coming on and they kind of get, I guess, a shock at the level of what's happening, and I wish you could have known this 6 months, a year prior before you got on campus, that really would have helped your journey.
Yeah. Well, one, the academics are real. Like you do go to class, you do have to pass your classes, you do have to do well. And, depending on where you go, that could be a real challenge, so for, the high school student getting prepared for college, as much as they're competitors, they're athletes, that's what they love. That's what their whole decision is about. It really isn't about that. You're in practice a couple hours a day. And then you're in class, you're a student, you have life. So all those other things are extremely important, and you need to kind of keep growing in those areas. I've been extremely proud of our players. The student athletes have excelled in the classroom as we've raised up towards top level rankings. Our academic profiles is grown too. We've been setting records quarter after quarter with what our GPAs are and stuff, even with the difficult travel. And it just says a lot about, the young women that are focused and have the resources to be successful. But for the young kids coming up, like, as much as you want to work on, your fancy dribble moves and that step back three that Steph makes look really easy, you gotta get your act straight, because the time commitment in college it's a full-time job. Like our student athletes are up and in the training room, getting prepared for, the physical workout that's coming up and eating breakfast at 7 a.m. And, their day goes all day long and, they go to bed at 10, hopefully 11, and wake up and do it again. There's just
Yeah.
not many off days. And, you got to have that discipline to kind of build that same routine into your system in high school. Otherwise, getting to college and being on your own, it's going to be a total shock to you. Yeah, I'd say make sure that they're working on the complete package of being a student athlete, not just some facet of the basketball game.
Yeah, that's I think that's awesome and good feedback. And obviously as a teacher myself, good to hear that when we say, hey, school books, it all matters, that's being backed up.
Yeah, no, I
So
mean, we make our players sit in the first 5 rows of class. The one player was teasing us I don't know, last week in our team meal, she's like, "Yeah, I'm gonna sit in the back of class today." And we're like, "What?" And she's like, "Yeah, we've only got 5 rows." So she said, "I can sit in the backs." But yeah, no, we have class checks. You gotta be sitting in the front. You gotta be taking notes. You can't have your hoodie on. You gotta, be locked in. And that's, just as important as boxing out on a rebound. So somebody's not doing it, we're running.
yeah, yeah, that's a good message, and I'm glad that when we do that with our high school kids, that I can say that all the college coaches do it too. So it's fine if I do it here. So talking a little bit about recruiting. I know you've worked with a lot of international recruiting before. Obviously, being an international player myself, I'm always thankful for the coaches that are kind of looking outside the borders for talent. At UCLA, I'm sure you're fortunate enough that there are plenty of players that want to come and play there. What I think I'm really interested in, though, I've always wondered how coaches approach it, is that I've, through playing a lot of FIBA, know that basketball gets played in a different style in a lot of different places, that how it's played, in Asia versus in Europe, versus Australia versus the States. Each kind of country has their own style. Obviously, inside of that, players are going to be doing their own thing inside of those systems. But when you're trying to, whether it's look at a girl from Europe or Australia or New Zealand, or even then try to compare that to someone in the US, what's the process you kind of go through, and how do you identify overseas talent, and then how do you kind of compare them to each other? How could you compare someone from Australia to France or Spain, or then back to an American here?
Yeah, lucky that, the technology has really increased over the past decade. So, a lot of the FIBA events are just always available. We do travel the world and go to events. And so we'll go see people live. So we do have, some help. There's some scouting services that, help identify people that go to these same events. And so you can talk to people. But for the most part, like, trusting your eyes, it is a lot of video that we watch with the international students, or live streams, or whatever they may be. The in-person evaluations are extremely limited, but to be able to, like, compare you playing against somebody that I'm at least familiar with is
Yeah,
helpful. So if there's somebody that I've seen live and I know how tall they are, how they move, what their body type is, how are they communicating on the floor, then I have, like, a gauge to get there. The hardest part is when I'm evaluating players that I don't know anybody they're competing against, but at the same time, I try to be aware of the level that they're competing at, and, the 16U Asia tournament, is that as strong as the 16U European tournament?
all right.
Like, what are the levels of that going on? But more than anything, trust my eyes, and I know I'm not always going to see what they do best, their best game, their worst game. And I constantly remind myself, I was just at practice today and, like, our best shooter missed all her shots, and
Yeah,
this kid can really shoot, So when I'm evaluating, I'm not necessarily evaluating, does she make it every time, but does she shoot like she makes it every time? Does she have that technique that goes? I can look at the stats, there's very few shooters that are going to, shoot better than 40%, right? So,
yeah.
but trying to pick out those things, I love passers. It seems to be that, like, if you can pass and see and have a feel of what's going to happen before it happens and have the skill to pass and avoid the ball getting deflected by a defender, like your level and comprehension of the game is at such a higher level, competitors that compete for rebounds, finish plays, stay with box outs, not just box out for a second, but stay with it until the ball's really, kind of corralled by somebody and who really has it. Just those kind of things are, for different positions and things we're looking at, but try to identify all those intangibles. And from what I've learned over the time is we've shifted a little bit of our offensive philosophy to a little bit more of that professional, global, 5 out, action, motion, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
And the international players are way ahead of our young Americans as far as understanding how to play that way, how to create space, how to create the next action, how to be a step ahead on a pass, how to cut off the ball to create somebody else to get open, how to fill a space. When I first started teaching our new style of offense, the internationals we had on our team, they were just like boom, 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 boom. They look like seasoned vets out there. And
Yeah.
our Americans who are all NBA players, they're like stuck. They didn't know
Yeah.
where to go. Like, can I just get a ball screen, please? Come over
Yeah.
here. So I love that. I love how quickly they pick up that style of play, and for us, it's important to teach our players at UCLA how to play at the next level, not just be successful here at UCLA, but to set them up for success when they keep playing, 10 years after us, So yeah, we're going to compete and play and prepare to win the games and make good decisions that way. But at the same time, we want to have, a development plan that's going to set you up for being a great pro at whatever level you're, able to play at and help you that way. So kind of entitled to, make sure that they learn the global game of basketball, what that really means. And lucky for us, the WNBA has kind of adopted that over the past year and a half style of play. And it's a lot easier to show our players now because they all want to aspire to get there. And so we got to do it.
Yeah. That's awesome. So, I mean, I always like when coaches bring up this point. People don't like it when I talk about it, I think because I'm foreign and then they feel like I'm picking on Americans. But when you talked about the foreign players, they understand some of those concepts that they're taught it earlier and younger. When I look at kind of the American model of how players are developed versus how in Australia, like we go through our junior ranks and what that looks like, or, kind of because of my FIBA journeys, kind of working with, people or players from other countries and talking about their experiences. Is there anything that you wish that American junior basketball did differently that could remedy some of those problems, that could help players to be more adaptive? So by the time they get to you, it's easy to pick up on some of those concepts. Do you think there's kind of any obvious shortcoming that, if we could change these couple of things, it would probably see to a huge growth in terms of how players are developing?
Yeah. I mean, I would say that internationally, there's more consistent, practice situations. There's more, programs and development programs that are practicing and developing skill and knowledge of why we're doing things and what we're doing, and spend less time on, competitive pickup games, that there's a lot of that. And there's a value of both, right? There's a
Yeah,
value
for
of
sure.
learning how to compete and just get after it and go make plays and, just feed off of the energy and defense and hustle and, that kind of action, which is a lot more traditional American based. And then, the team ball movement and working off the ball and knowing how to do things off the ball better. I think, there's value both ways,
Yeah,
so,
for sure.
but I think that's where probably the structure of it and the commitment of whether that high school is a great high school that has a tradition that they can do that and practice more and train more and have the consistency of a coaching staff, whereas, the club teams overseas have a little more consistency year in and year out with what they're there. The pride that it is to play for your national team and the seriousness you take coaching when you're there, and the
Yeah.
feedback you get is extremely meaningful. I love it. We want our players to go play for their national team as much as possible when they're an international player. Here in the United States, I mean, that is a select few that get that opportunity to do something like that.
Yeah.
And you can't replicate that type of experience. I think Giannis just got in trouble for saying that, one of his greatest accomplishments was winning the bronze at Euros
Yeah.
or something. It's like,
Yeah.
but as somebody who recruits internationally, as somebody who's played for their country, you understand what that means.
Yeah, for sure. I think that and even now with some of the business side, getting into college basketball a little bit. I mean, I had great pride in playing for Westmont, and for me, it felt like there was a purity there. I think because I really believed in what the college was and the institution. That for me, it was like this is my home, is what I represent. If I throw in a Warrior jersey, like I'm playing for everything that this represents, and so I want to make sure I do it well. Once I started playing professionally, I mean, it was awesome. The crowds were a lot bigger than at Westmont, but there was a part of it where this guy was worried about this contract, and kind of there were players that I guess the older you get, the bigger the problems are. Whatever you're worried about as a college kid doesn't matter as much as when you're 30 years old and playing. You've got these other things going on, and so I felt like there was an extent of kind of the purity of the game wasn't quite there for me. But I tell people all the time when I played for Australia, like there's nothing else that compares that. Like if my house was burning down and I could grab like a handful of things, like going and grabbing that jersey is one of the first things that I'm making sure gets out. If there's only one basketball, a piece of memorabilia that I could have, it would be that Australia jersey and just what it means to be able to represent your country and everything that they do. So yeah, I agree that the passion is there, and fortunately for kind of the smaller countries, and I mean, you could fit all of Europe inside of the United States, and that's however many 50, 60 different national teams you could potentially play for. And so yeah, I love FIBA basketball. I love watching there was the Euro Cup, the Asia Cup, watching as many of those games as possible, because that and probably like March Madness are some of the most cutthroat basketball events on the planet when it gets to representing your programs at a high level.
Yeah. No, I hope we can kind of create that same type of passion and feel in the collegiate game that they do at the international game. It's very similar as far as, having a rowdy fan base, passionate fan base, the people that are there to behind you, the team that, as much as our kind of high level NCAA basketball is shifted towards a pro model. I mean, come October through April, like it still is, a lot of the same thing that we've been doing for decades. It's
Yeah.
all about the team. It's all about chemistry. It's all about getting closer. It's all about being selfless and helping a teammate be great. It's all about just, the process of the day-to-day work and the encouragement from a teammate and growing. And I mean, I think college basketball is an extremely special opportunity for so many people. And I hope that as things are changing, that the people that are in the sport of college basketball can still keep that, the passionate
Yeah.
fans, the purity of it when it comes to competition. And then, hey, we're monetizing it too now.
Yeah, no, it's great. I mean, for me personally, I tell people this all the time. I watch more college basketball than I do the NBA, because if you're watching an NBA game, it's 2 months into the season. You got people trying to pace themselves. It feels like every other night, whether someone's physically sitting out, they're like, I'm just gonna keep it on the back burner for tonight. It's not really until the playoffs it feels like there's an intensity there, but even with that, it's a 7-game series. So it's like, all right, well, we lost this one, but we had another 3 chances. By the time you get to March Madness, and it's like, this is it. This is everything you worked for. Doesn't really matter if you're the 1 seed, a 14 seed. If you don't bring your A game. If someone upsets, you have those Cinderella stories. And so that kind of the passion and focus, just the intensity is at an all-time high. And so I think it's always hard to find places in the world that replicate that, especially college basketball in March, where this is everything on the line. And so I definitely hope that we're still able to keep that, despite moving in a way that is a bit more professional. That I agree. I think there's something really special about college athletics that whoever's making those big decisions up top, they need to make sure that that's a part of the focal point of keeping.
Yeah. Come on now. You had plenty of painted bodies in the stands at Murchison Gym when you were playing. A bunch of crazy loud people up there.
Yeah, we had some good games, and I mean, luckily it's not too big of a gym, so as long as you get some people in there, that it gets pretty loud. And I mean, I had a great time in there, and it was a lot of fun and a lot of good events, but definitely different from the first time we went to Perth when I was playing in the NBL, and there was 100 people already there in warm-ups, like just to heckle us while we were warming up. What are you doing here? I maybe had like one person yell at me at Vanguard when I was warming up before, so that was a little bit different, but a lot of fun. One thing that obviously has changed a lot with college athletics too is the transfer portal. And again, I think a place like UCLA, obviously the basketball's at a really high level, but academics is at a higher level too. And so all the stuff we talked about, like having pride in your institution, really representing. I mean, out of maybe any college in America, UCLA is a blue blood program, that it's got to be top 5 most, history kind of basketball schools. And so I guess when it comes to the transfer portal, people get in there for a variety of reasons and motivations. How has that changed recruiting? Are there things that you have to think about when you analyze someone in a transfer kind of portal situation? Is there a kind of a balance of, obviously sometimes people jump in and they leave, and so you have to refill maybe more than you'd like. But in terms of like continuity, at what age you trying to grab people? Is there a high school to transfer ratio that is ideal, or is it just every year is completely different and we kind of go by each player on a case-by-case basis?
Yeah, I mean, I still would love consistency and growth and development within the program. And, we're committed to recruiting, young high school players all over the world, and trying to bring them in and have them be Bruins as long as possible. I think, a lot of coaches would love that. And the reality is, there's a lot of great players in the portal, and we need to be successful as well as develop, the young women. And you've got to look at all that as an opportunity to grow your team, help make your team stronger. The sad part about the transfer portal is it's so immediate. It's so fast. It really is difficult to get to know and build relationships at the same level you do probably in recruiting, younger high school players who you're committed to for years. For us, it seems like most of the people that we brought in from the portal have had recruitment in the past, so they have a little bit of foundation and we're comfortable with them, or maybe they've been within, competitive programs where we know them a lot. But yeah, portal recruiting is really difficult. It just happens. Everybody's calling instantly, trying to get the attention of that player and make their sales pitch of why their program's going to be great for them and why we need you. And everything just happens extremely fast. And hopefully you put yourself in a situation where you don't need to do a lot of portal recruiting, because then you're taking a lot of gambles on, relationships that you don't know much about. We've been real successful with the people we've brought in. But again, that's usually due to the fact of prior relationships, prior recruiting, and getting to know that. But you need, it's tough to deny. I think we're the Pac-12 All-Star team, on our team. We've got, Washington State's best player and Oregon State's best player and one of Oregon's best players, and Stanford and Utah now. And, so, we do recruit out of the portal, and we're extremely happy to have the people we have out of it. But we also love to have a balance of growth and development that gives us that stability in our program.
Yeah. So when people transfer in, I mean, statistically, most of the time what happens is people enter the portal and they think they're going to something bigger or better, but the stats would say most of the time you are going to end up transferring down. And whether it's you start Division One, you jump in the portal, you think all of a sudden someone's coming to snatch you up, no one comes, and now you go D2, back to junior college for a year before you can get back up and play. Being that you guys are at the top, I mean, you can't really transfer down to UCLA. Obviously, you got a lot of power programs that maybe are in a similar place that you either could come over, or if, you're picking anyone, they are coming up. But whether it's someone that, maybe was on your team and they were considering the transfer portal, or if it was just any generic player that was at the end of their college season, they had eligibility left and they're thinking about getting in the portal, what do you think are the biggest things for players to consider before they make that jump?
Know why you're doing it, know why you're leaving. What are you really focused on? You got to have clear direction. You can't just be going in there fishing, and just see what happens. You've got to have purpose, focus, direction as to why you're going in there, what you're looking for in a program. Are you looking to, get to a higher level? Are you looking for more opportunity to play? Are you looking for a different style of play? What is it that you're looking for? What is it that's important to you? And you've got to be really focused on those things. If you're just listening to sales pitches of recruiting, everything's going to sound great. Everybody's going to make it sound like, they need you, they want you, but you've got to be, kind of steadfast into what you know about yourself, what you're really looking for, line those, kind of priorities up and stick with those. Now, as you get opened up to new opportunities, you got to always look at what's being, presented to you, but stay true to yourself. It's such a short period of time, an important period of time. To be in the right place is more important than, maybe this is a good choice for me, and yeah, you got to know that, because sometimes, you get into the portal, if you are aligned with exactly what you know and what you are focused on, maybe you can make a quick decision, because there are so many other kind of dominoes falling, right? So I may have school X on Wednesday, and on Friday they get a commitment from somebody out of the portal, and my opportunity's gone at that school because they only have one scholarship left. I mean, that's really how fast things happen in the
Yeah.
portal. So to not waste time, like if you know this is what I'm doing, this is why I'm doing it, this is what I'm looking for, stay focused to be on task there and get to those places, see that school, meet that coach, meet your teammates, and then be able to make a quick decision, and be just like me, be optimistic that
Yeah.
that's the right
Yeah.
thing, So
Yeah.
if you don't, then you're going to be stressed out, and that
Yeah.
is not going to be optimal performance, when you're stressed out.
Yeah. No, that's good feedback, and I think good things for the players to consider, because again, I think sometimes, like you said, people get lured by these stories of grandeur or NIL money, or they just think that the transfer portal is this magical place where you just go in and all of a sudden your life gets better. As to your point, making sure you have a clear plan, direction, you know exactly what you're after and where you're headed is important.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean we've got players on our team that were all-American level stars at other high-level places, and coming to a new team is difficult. The dynamics of a new coach, a new style, new teammates, for you to perform at the same level you are performing at your previous university is probably lofty expectations, like
Yeah.
fitting in and developing into a new role. Maybe you're coming to a place where, you were allowed to shoot every time, and they actually need you to make some decisions off the ball with the, ball in your hands, as opposed to just let it rip. And
Yeah.
it's a lot easier to shoot when, let it
Yeah.
rip is my role.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whereas like, I need to make a good decision. I need to take care of this ball. That's a harder structure to play in. But at the same time, if that's what's going to help the team win, you got to succumb to that. And
Yeah, for sure.
I appreciate, the players that have chosen to come to our school, and I'm sure the same coaches around other programs would feel the same way when you're willing to sacrifice a little bit of me for we and kind of take that journey into a new role on a team. There's just nothing more special than being part of a team. Whatever your role is a huge role. Being a star in your role is the only way that we're going to have success. We spend a lot of time on that. We spend a lot of time on valuing your role, how big it is, no matter what it is. If you're the energy person, or you're the screener, or the lockdown defender, and if you're the lockdown defender, we need about 4 more of you.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's great to have new people just dive into a new situation.
Yeah, that's awesome. So we've talked, obviously, academics being an important piece of it, making sure that you're well rounded there. I mean, you've talked about some of the skill based intangibles that when you're looking at recruits, you think about when it comes to selecting like players. What are some of the other the body language intangibles, or some of those 1% things that maybe help you differentiate between we've got potentially 3, 4, 5-star recruits that we might be able to get. Oh, we have the Pac-12 all-star transfer portal lineup we could get. What are some of those little things that maybe players, I don't know if they missed or don't value quite as much, but as a coach, you're looking for, they do this, so I want to, like, that kind of confirms to me I want to bring him in. That's one of my green flags. That looks like a player that could really have success here and, build into some of that stuff, buy into the roles you're talking about. Can you talk a little bit about just some of those little pieces, the little intangibles that could be the difference if that player ends up with a scholarship or if it's someone that gets kind of passed and looked over?
Yeah, I mean, obviously skill's really important, but the intangibles are probably some of the indicators that you can look at that'll see, how successful they'll be within your program. If that's an intangible for your program, everybody has a different style, whether they're pressure defense or zone defense, or we play fast, or we play through the post, or we're a ball screen team, or, we trap like crazy. So, that everybody's going to be looking to fit certain things. But yeah, the player that's locked in, from warm-ups to the end of the game, that's a special trait, whether they're focused, communicating, eye contact with coaches, talking to teammates, receiving feedback, receiving it with good body language, not getting, disturbed too much with a bad call or a call that doesn't go your way is usually what it's more like than a bad call. Those are the things that, make a big difference. You've got to have that next play speed is how kind of we term it. You've just got to move on, emotionally, mentally, you've got to move on to the next play instantly. If not, you're beat, we're beat, and to be able to have that skill, how can you already have at least a standard or a value of that skill a little bit, as opposed to, we want you to play with emotion, but not be emotional. So I think,
That's good.
how do you have that? We want passion, you've got to have a little bit of ego
Yeah,
to
for sure.
be successful. Now, do you have an ego that's focused on me, or do you have an ego that's focused on helping the team be better? And sometimes you need to go get that bucket, like that's helping the team in that moment, and that's okay. But, trying to decipher between, the emotional, the playing with emotion, the ego for him or her versus the ego for us, how being distracted by things. I think those are a lot of it, Are you the first one that hustles over and picks up a teammate? Are you putting your water cup in the trash on the bench? Or are you just throwing it
Yeah.
underneath your chair? Or after the game, do you go back and pick up all those water cups that got thrown
Yeah.
out under by your teammates? So just all those type of things really do mean a lot. Us coaches are paying attention to that a lot. I mean, we can walk into the gym and see who the athlete is, see who's got the pretty shot, and see who's, handling the ball and making decisions. Like, that stuff comes pretty quickly, but we really are watching, communicating amongst ourselves about a lot of those intangible things. Yeah, I mean, shoot, I call coaches and ask about crazy mom too.
Yeah.
I saw her in the stands. She bug you? And he's like, no, no, coach, she's 100% about the team. Great. If she's 100% about her daughter and not the coaching decision, I'm a little leery of what's happening
Yeah.
out there. So to all the parents listening and watching, yeah, we do talk about you. We want
Yeah.
you on board. You are not in practice. You do not know what's going on. We love your daughter, and at the same time, we're trying to do the right things for the team and use opportunities as teaching lessons, sometimes, you've got to send a message in a different way for it to get through.
Yeah. For sure. Well, that's good. I mean, there's a lot of good nuggets in there. I might clip some of that advice for the parents and make sure that gets out there, because I think that is unfortunate. I have a lot of good parents, but I often travel around to obviously different tournaments we play, and I'll go and watch people, and I listen to people in the stands and think, gosh, I would hate to be that coach that's got to deal with that every week. And I liked what you said about, the emotion piece. Right, have emotion, not be emotional, and I've had guys on my team that have a lot of fire, and sometimes they need to be reined back. And I got people from the outside like, "Oh, coach, that guy's a lot." I'm like, "Yeah, but I would way rather have him and kind of keep the fire in check than to have a guy that has no fire at all. And when it's time to compete and go, it's like, hey man, like I can't keep forcing it, I can't keep pushing you, but that piece of the emotion but not emotional, I really appreciate.
Yeah. And
So
if you're emotional,
yeah,
you just got to learn to reset, you got to learn to bring it back. It's an emotional, passionate game. The competition
definitely.
brings out the worst in all of us sometimes, disappointment, people having a different opinion than what you think, it really ramps all that up, and you just got to be disciplined to reset, because no matter what you think the call is, it's usually not getting changed, like
Yes.
move on. We're
Yeah.
walking to the free throw line, people. So you got to just be able to move on and be ready for the next thing that's coming your way.
Yeah, that's awesome. So good. I like to do this with all my college guests. I give them a chance to, talk about their school and their program a little bit. Obviously, coming up on 15 years with UCLA. If to wrap us up, you just wanted to talk a little bit about some of your favorite things about whether it be the school, the campus, the program, the culture. Just what are some of your highlights being a part of that UCLA basketball family there, and then also just being a part of the university as a whole?
Well, first and foremost, like I wanted to go to UCLA out of high school. That was my spot. They made me take a tough challenge and have to go somewhere else.
Yeah.
So I did. So the second time that they called and said, "Hey, we're interested in you now," I was really excited about it. So I was torn. I was at Westmont at the time. So,
Yeah.
I loved what I was doing there, but again, it was a new opportunity to do something that I had always wanted to do, and to be able to coach at a level, the highest level in collegiate athletics, surrounded by Olympians, future pros, and all sports. I mean, there's global greatness around me at all times is pretty special, to be able to go recruit and bring in the best players and coach the best players and the next pros is something that I was excited about. And now keeping me here 15 years is the people I do it with, so Coach Corey Close and I've been together here for 15 years doing this. Pam Walker's been on here for 15 years, our director of operations, and just to have stability and that kind of leadership. And then the people that we constantly bring in are incredible people. We say that if you don't have a selfless heart, you're going to stick out like a sore thumb here at UCLA, because I mean, Coach Corey, she's got like brooms hanging up in her office on the wall to remind us that we all got to sweep the sheds,
Yeah.
that the
Awesome.
leadership's got to take care of every little detail, that it's not the manager's job just to wipe up the wet spot on the floor. Like if you got a towel, get down there, get it done, like be open that way. So I love that, and it's pretty special to be around people that you love and care about in a competitive situation and doing something bigger than us. Our tagline for our program is to teach, mentor, and equip women for beyond UCLA. Like
Yeah.
we're obviously teaching them about what we need for here, but like it's a bigger picture, to be able to go to 3 weddings this year, for
Yeah, that's
players
awesome.
that came through, and just kind of see that part of their journey and their life, and to be able to, go overseas and watch, professional people play and see them experience what's going on, to gonna miss the Westmont reunion
Yeah.
and see all the kids. So
Yeah.
gonna miss that in a couple of weeks because we've got a scrimmage. But those are the things that I'm most excited about at UCLA is just the people that are here, the extreme tradition with greatness in all sports and all athletes, and just being able to do it with friends. It's to be in one spot in college athletics for 15 years says a lot about the people I work with.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's definitely a rarity to be at one spot, and especially such a high level program like that for that tenure is really unique. Well, I would definitely miss you at the Westmont reunion. We're gonna head up there, and Alicia's really excited about all the other stuff they're doing with the women's program. And so I'll have to probably, see if she wants to go to a UCLA game this year. We can take our daughter and she can get a sense of it, because we were reminiscing when I got your schedule on the pod that I think the first time we ever met was actually the day Alicia and I got engaged. We had scheduled to go to a UCLA women's game, and I surprised her in the morning, and obviously got to go out there, but I haven't been back since. So it's we've been married for over 10 years now, so I think it's time to go back and check out a game and see all the stuff you guys are doing up there.
Hey, and we're coming halfway to you this year. Like our season opener is in Anaheim.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So
Not
there you go. We can meet in the middle a little
yeah,
bit right
not
there.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, I think we open up there maybe November 3rd or 4th against San Diego State. So
Awesome.
yeah, so there you go. Getting you
Yeah.
on dial for that. And if not, we got
Yeah.
plenty more home games. Get you up here,
There
Dan.
yeah, there we go. We'll definitely come and check you out this year.
And feed the kid lots of sugar when she comes, okay? We need her screaming and loud.
Yeah, oh, she will be. She likes to talk. She loves basketball, which is good 'cause she's in the gym with me a bunch, and so if she didn't, I'd be in trouble, but she's happy to watch, and usually she wants to get a ball for herself, and I mean, she's only 1, so she doesn't do much with it, but she likes to try to slap at it and push it around, so we'll get her yelling. Yeah. All right, coach. Well, again, thank you for your time. Good luck this season, and looking forward to following on with another great year of UCLA women's basketball.
Yeah, appreciate what you're doing. Keep up the good work. Coaching at any level is impactful and important, to all the people listening. I've been blessed to be able to do it at a lot of different levels. Some of my favorite days in the gym are with, a couple like 6th and 7th graders, just one-on-one, having a good time and,
Yeah.
teaching the basics of dribbling and trying to keep your head up.
Yeah.
So, but all those days are in the memory banks, and you guys just go out there and keep creating good memories for yourself and for other people too.
Yeah. Thank you, coach. I appreciate that.
Yeah. All right. Take care,
Alrighty.
everybody.
Take care. See you later.